Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. We are back again. My name is Wendy O'Connell, and today on our show, our guest is Hannah Hoffman. Hannah is a musician and a performer. She's a soulful soprano who experiments with sonic textures and landscape vocally and on the synthesizer. Hannah performs as Dutch Experts, and she has a new album that is just out, hot off the press, literally, and a spring tour that's coming up as well. So welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's great to have you on the show, and it's good to hear about your music, so we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more.
Awesome.
You grew up in the Upper Valley, like around Hanover area. Yep.
Exactly.
Starting with the piano.
Starting with, well, I guess technically kind of with the voice, but that, I don't think people think of voice as an instrument right away when you're a child, just like making a lot of random singing noises. I did a lot of singing as a kid, and I loved Barney and Raffi and Sesame Street, and so I was always kind of in front of the TV doing that. And my parents thought, oh, she's probably musical, and then they got me into playing piano and taking lessons, and then they bought me a karaoke machine when I was 7 or 8 and a microphone. Oh, wow. And so then they were like, oh, whoops. Now our house is never going to be quiet again.
What have we done?
At least it wasn't a drum set, so.
Oh, yes, that's a good point. And did you have siblings?
I have a younger sister. She doesn't really, she definitely is interested in music, but she's not a musician. Yeah. She kind of got more into nursing and helping people, which is really sweet.
That's nice.
Something I would never do because I'm so grossed out by most things that nursing involves. So she's brave. But yeah, she's not really a musician, but she's creative in a helping people sort of way.
Yeah. So. Did you bring her into your little performances at home?
Actually, yes. She was heavily involved. Heavily involved.
She was a player.
She was a player in the game, yes. She was always down to join me in this weird thing I was doing.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
We've kind of come full circle. Now she's like, okay, what next? She'll do karaoke with me and stuff. So.
And it's still fun, I bet.
It's still fun, yeah.
So you also got into musical theater.
Yes.
Yes. And by that, do you mean like Broadway musical kind of things, or? Yeah. Kind of nerdy stuff like that. Yeah, definitely was a musical theater kid. I wouldn't say it's my favorite thing, but I think it was really important for my development as a performer. It made me comfortable with being on stage. Yeah. And then I kind of got the bug, and I couldn't stop. A lot of the things about musical theater is that you can do the words, right? The lyrics are such that they compel you to learn them and know them. Totally. Yeah. And then I started writing songs when I was 13, and I started incorporating the elements of what I learned musical theater wise with being on stage and performing with a piano and singing my own stuff, which was so bad. Some of those songs are so bad, but you know what? You gotta do it. You just gotta do it. Yeah. I guess. I had a lot of angst, so I'm really glad that I had those channels to take it out of me in. Yes. Music and theater were healthy alternatives to things I could have been doing, so I was really glad that I had those. In retrospect. Yes. Right. And you enjoyed them at the time. I really did. Yeah. And your parents supported you in all of these things. They did. They were, they were really busy because they got divorced when I was 13, so they were kind of doing the single parent hustle for a long time through much of my teenagehood. But they were still always at my performances and always making sure that I was going to my lessons, and they made it work. Oh, that's good. Yeah. When you got to be a teenager, what kind of music were you starting to get into then? Whew. So many different kinds. Yeah. I feel like I kind of have a really weird eclectic mix of things that I like. I like a lot of different kinds of music, but when I was a teenager, I was really into actually punk rock was a huge thing that I liked, and subsequently post-punk. And I remember hearing the Smiths when I was 14, and it was so sad and like melancholic
Yeah.
that I was like, oh my God, I love this.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like fit where I was at. And then I got into The Cure and Susie and the Banshees, and that was kind of like very much like a British post-punk
Yeah.
thing I was in, The Clash. But then I was also really into singer-songwriter, like particularly women singer-songwriters like Fiona Apple and Tori Amos and Regina Spektor. Like women that played piano specifically were really interesting to me. Kate Bush. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird amalgamation of things.
Yeah. But it's also an evolution. You know,
Totally.
it really evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you started getting into the singer-songwriters, were you starting to do your own songwriting?
Yeah, I think, so I distinctly remember writing my first song when I was 13. And I think it was like around the time that I was becoming aware that like my parents were like going through some stuff. And I kind of used that as like a channel.
Yeah.
And all the stuff that I didn't really know how to vocalize kind of just came out through the music, and then it just kind of continued through there. And I mean, I'm telling you, these songs were trash, but like, I just had these moments. I like very distinctly remember just being at the piano and like expressing whatever was in there outwardly, and I just felt better afterwards.
Yeah.
It was like a release.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think you explain it really viscerally, because I think that so many of us, and for my generation anyway, specifically girls more than guys, who I can remember copying out the lyrics to like I Am a Rock, Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
You know, and feeling that kind, and reading Sylvia Plath. I mean, there's that kind of thing that somehow, you know, not only moves you, but allows you, and you had a piano too.
Right, I
which
did.
is fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt really lucky to have a piano.
When you were writing like that, and perhaps this might have come a bit later, were you doing both at once? Were you working at the piano and working with lyrics simultaneously?
I was at that point, yeah. It's interesting because I used to just, like I could just sit and it would just all come out together. And it was like I had so many moments like that. Like every day I would just be like, okay, I'd get home from school and that would be like what I did. And now as an adult, I'm like trying so hard to like recapture those moments. But then I'm like, you know what? It's okay to like grow out of those ways of writing and like learn how to write in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think I almost have to because it's challenging when you're actually like trying to write a good song and not like I'm angry and I'm 13 and like this is just coming out of me and I'm gonna be like, yeah, that's it, and like never edit.
Right. How great, though, to have been able to do that at that age.
It felt really good.
Yes, I'll bet it did. You're still songwriting. It's something that you've continued doing as well as the piano. And I think that this is something that you said with songwriting, you like to do it as written, keeping it simple. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think particularly when it comes to like translating things in a live context or like playing with other musicians, my biggest challenge has been getting people not to overplay or like play or like kind of riff on what I've written. And I write things so intentionally to be the way they are, even if it sounds maybe repetitive to somebody who's like playing it. In the whole context of the song, it's like essential to keep it the way it's written just to make the song come through the way that I intended. So that's been my biggest challenge, is like having people like play things as I wrote them, which for me, being someone who's like really bad at like telling people to like do things I want them to do, I'm not very good at being assertive. I'm like, okay, like let me go hide in a hole and like not express myself. That's been my biggest challenge playing with other people, is like being able to convey what I want artistically. So I'm definitely getting better at like vouching for myself and what I need, but that's been one of the biggest challenges.
When you first started out performing with audiences out in the world, were you solo or were you with others?
I was solo for a while, and I would play like, you know, restaurant gigs and like be like stuck in the corner of like cafes and stuff, and which is a great way to start and a great way to practice. And I did that for so long, and I kind of became disenchanted with it because it was more like, it wasn't really a show. It was just like a practice, which is fine. And I think I had to do that to kind of understand like the difference between performing on like in a stage context in a venue versus performing like just background noise.
Right.
And it's also really good for your ego because it teaches you that like nobody actually really cares that much and that's okay. It's mostly like for you, and like you need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that too, I assume, has probably evolved over time.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
yes. And again, your relationship to the audience, you know, as evolving from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit how that has been and how it's been for you?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So I think playing by yourself is really challenging because you have to be a lot of different things, not just the person playing and singing, but you have to kind of also carry a lot of the weight and like make it seem bigger than it is. And so that was kind of challenging for me. And also you have to like load in all your own stuff and like set all your own stuff up, which is fine, but it just, you know, it's a lot of work. And you do get all the money at the end of the night, which is great, but it did feel a little lonely. And so then when I was 17, I think I started my first band, which was called Hannah and the Wooden Spoons, which was like, I don't really know what kind of genre of music it was. It was basically taking my solo music and then like adding a rock band to it. And it was all like dudes who were a little bit older than me who like played way too loud and way too heavy, and then just me at the piano trying to sing like these little like girly songs. And it was fun, but it didn't work out, you know. And then I kind of went through different iterations of like playing with just one other person and then going back to playing by myself, then playing with another band and then playing by myself. And now I've spent the last year trying to figure out how to translate what I've written, like my newest stuff for Dutch experts, into a live context. And I'm not really sure like how to do it entirely how I want it yet.
and so you're going to be going out on tour, and is that where you're going to find out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So I think like the things you can do with electronic instrumentation now is just so insane. And now that I've learned how to do it, like teaching myself at home, how to work with electronic stuff, and then having the synthesizer and like looping things or like playing to an electronic track and have everything be in my ear so that I can hear like the tempo and like know when I'm supposed to come in. It's just so much easier than like having 4 other people like hauling their gear around and having to pay everybody out and
Synthesizers sound to me like it would be endless. There's so many possibilities, right?
Yes.
And how is that for you in terms of sort of ordering, you know, how far to go with a song?
That's a good question. I don't actually know, because I think at a certain point you have to stop. And when I write now versus when I was 13, it's very much just like informed by the sonic choices that I'm making.
Yes.
So I will like lock into a sound and I hear it and I'm like, oh, that's got something. And then I'll like write a riff, and then I will record it into a digital program, and then I will go back and I will like loop it and like cut and paste things, and then record over things and add things, and then kind of layer the instrumentation and different sounds. And then from there, I like go back in when all of that's finished, and that's when I do the lyrics, which is always my least favorite part, because I tend to like sing over what I'm playing and just in gibberish. Kind of, I'm really inspired by Elizabeth Fraser of the Cocteau Twins, because she always sang in gibberish and never wrote real lyrics, or if she did, they were very minimal. And so I kind of applied that same technique to what I write, and then I try to like change the gibberish to a real word. And so, but then also try to tell a story. So it's, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just playing around mostly.
Well, it's a really interesting process and very, very seemingly organic process that you're doing and trying to figure out what works. There was a great quote. Someone said, I don't know where this is from, it says, your sound, you have a sound that became uniquely modern, yet captured an 80s sonic sensibility. Synth pop with a dark wave edge. Good quote.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. I don't know where that came from.
I know.
Either.
I don't either. I should have who said that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Again, going back to your expression through music and voice, and what you're talking about with the synthesizer. Partly, to me, it sounds like your voice has become an instrument in the way you've been doing it lately. And do you feel, is there sort of like a backlog of things that you want to start articulating and saying?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a good question. That's almost like why it's so challenging in a lot of ways, because you don't even know where to start. And I feel like this particular EP that I just wrote and released is just only the tip of the iceberg in many ways. But even still, I'm like so happy with what I was able to convey through that. And now I'm like, oh, like now I've like already moved on. I'm like, next one, let's go. Like I feel so ready to like write. I've started writing the next one, but it's still in such beginning stages that I don't really know where it's going yet.
Yeah.
But I know I want to say something.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, before you move on to the next one, let's just take a look at the one that just came out today. If you can, hopefully we've got something without glare. That's pretty great right next to you as well.
Hello, it's me. It's me as a Renaissance painting.
One of the things I believe that you said, I think I'm quoting you, is that there are unending opportunities to making something new with a synthesizer, which we've kind of talked about, and the electronic possibilities that are out there. I know that you've gotten into, and I think this is partly pandemic related, production and sound engineering. And singer-songwriter, since it's playing the synthesizer production, that's a lot.
Yeah, but like, why not just be crazy busy all the time, and just fill your brain with things? At least it's cool stuff. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm one of those people that has to be like constantly challenged. Otherwise, I feel like I'm not doing enough. If that makes sense. Like, if I'm like idle for too long, then I'm like, something's wrong. And then I start to go a little crazy. Yeah. So I think I work really well under pressure. I found out. I'm really good at working under the knife. Like, gotta get this done. So maybe I don't know if that's a good thing, but it works for me. I like a little chaos. I'm okay with it, but it's like good chaos,
Creative chaos.
Yeah, creative chaos, which I feel like in a lot of ways creativity just kind of is.
Yeah, messy.
It can be messy. It's not easy, and it's not always fun, but it's very human, and humans are chaotic. So
that's right, and not always pretty.
And not always pretty. So
let's talk a little bit about the pandemic, because I think that a lot of things happened for you during the pandemic, as they did for all of us. But can you talk a little bit about that? The influence on you and your music.
Yeah. So I'd kind of like had this period of time where I was writing things and performing with a band, but then I just never felt like they were good enough to like record or put out into the world. And I was sort of grappling with this like internal struggle of like, I want to have something, but I don't want it to be this. I don't want this to be the representation of like me and what I'm capable of. And so it was like this constant battle of like looking at other people that like contemporaries of me, like my friends and like people who are putting out their music, and feeling like I wasn't doing what I should have been doing, which is like a weird thing that social media does to you, where they make you think that like, because everyone else's life looks a certain way on social media, like you can't have that because you're not doing that or something. It's like this, social media is toxic. We all know this. So I kind of was playing into this, kept looping in my head, and then I was like, what's the point? And then I kind of like not swore off music, but I didn't focus on it as much as I like should have been focusing on it. I kind of like put it on the back burner a little bit. And then in 2020, when the pandemic happened and everything was crazy, I literally had like a breakdown because I just had no idea like who I was or what I was supposed to be doing, because I'd kind of like lost track of like the things I love to do. And then I felt like they'd been taken away from me because of COVID, and like nobody knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then I got sick. I got COVID, and I had like really crazy like neurological stuff for a long time. And nobody could tell me what was wrong with me because they didn't know. And so I just was like having like a mental breakdown, and I was feeling really, really lost. And then about a year into that, I was feeling better physically, but mentally I was like, I need to build myself back up. And throughout this time, I was like, I'm just gonna like write. And I did The Artist's Way. I don't know if you know that book, but I did that, and I like did my morning pages and tried to get myself straight and in the brain. And then I kind of came to the realization that like you can try to like distance yourself from what you're supposed to be doing, but it's always gonna like find a way to like come back and like haunt you. And so I felt like I was being haunted by like this desire to fulfill like this musical dream that I feel like I've always had. And so, not to sound like corny, but I was like, I have to do this. And so I just like put my nose to the grindstone. I cried a lot about writing this record. And then I wrote an entire record, scrapped half of it, and put out this EP, which I'm actually like really, really proud of.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I had a breakdown, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And you refer to it as a full ego death.
Yeah.
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 And was that something that, had you touched upon that earlier in your life? Was it familiar, or did it really just come out during that time?
It was not familiar. I mean, I think it was one of those things where people are really good at like lying to themselves about what they might be carrying around. And I think I was carrying around a lot of stuff that I hadn't fully processed yet. And so that kind of all just came up when I was sick and felt like I didn't have anybody to help me. And then the whole world just kind of felt like they didn't know how to help anyone.
Right.
And I know that everyone can relate to these feelings in the same way. So it's like, I know we're not all alone, even though we felt alone. But it was just sort of this like moment where everything clicked, even though I felt like I literally had nothing.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, I do have everything though.
Wow.
Like I have the ability to make this work. Like it's okay.
That's an amazing thing. And part of it is, I think, your own courage that really did this, and the force of your creativity, you know, the truth and the force of your creativity coming through, where you were able to draw from that and start really creating again. That's a real gift, for one thing.
I think everybody has that capability. That's the thing. Like reading the artist. I'm going to plug it again. The Artist's Way is great, and it like I was reading it and I was just like, oh, this is burning me because it's so true. And there's just so many people that I think they either have, it's like artistic trauma, right? They get themselves on this loop of like, I'm not good enough, therefore I don't deserve to like be in touch with my art, which is complete BS, because it shouldn't be about what other people want and what's good for other people, but it should be about what you need to do for yourself in order to make yourself feel alive. And like, I didn't feel alive. I felt like I was dying, like spiritually, because I didn't feel like I was good enough to have myself like commit to my art and my creativity in the way it deserved. So now I'm like, screw that. Like, that's complete BS. Like, need to just do it. It's hard and it sucks, but it's also amazing.
And you moved through it.
I moved through it.
That's what's incredible, you know, coming out of, for so many people, coming out of the pandemic was a completely different life of some kind. I'm gonna shift a little bit. I'd like to ask you, you've been in the Brattleboro area for quite a while now. And I'd like to know what you think about how Brattleboro is as a community for folks your age especially. if it offers, the kinds of things that you need, and what it's like for you, especially as a creative, being in this community.
Yeah, it's an interesting, nuanced question, because I think in a lot of ways it feels like when I first moved here, it felt like really disconnected in a lot of ways. Like I feel like there was kind of like people with money and people without money, which I still kind of feel like is a thing, but it's become more apparent that people know that there is a strong, youthful community here that like needs something to do that's not like drinking and drugging, and like they have creative energy to bring, and it should be honored and also kind of exhibited in a healthy way. And so I think as much as the internet is like a curse, I think it has helped people realize that there is like stuff going on here. And I think because of that, they're like respecting that desire and that call to like have people do what they need to do. And like the Stone Church is incredible. Like all the Downtown Business Alliance programming is amazing. Like the gallery walk stuff that's happening now, I'm like, yes. Like seeing that happen, it makes me so happy.
Yes.
So I feel like it was challenging, and it's going to continue to be challenging because it is a small town. There's only so much that we can do, but I think we have the right idea. We're going in the right direction.
Oh, that's good.
I think what's happening programming-wise at the Stone Church is awesome.
Yes.
And people are coming from out of town. They're getting good press. Putting Brattleboro on the map as a destination is like a really important thing.
Yes.
So.
And I think they and Epsilon Spires.
Yes, absolutely.
Hatchspace.
Hatchspace is so cool.
Yeah.
All the creative stuff here is really cool. I think it just needs like the right organization and like press to make it really happen.
Yes.
And it's happening. It's just like, I'm like, oh, how many years was that? Like, but obviously that stuff does take time, but I think it's like definitely becoming a thing. So.
And it comes in waves too.
Totally.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Also, people need places to live
Yeah.
in town and be able to raise families in town. And I think that's still a real big challenge.
Yes. Lower your rents.
Yeah.
Brattleboro landlords.
Yeah.
Lower your rents.
Yeah. There's been a lot of conversation
Yeah.
over the last few months about that very thing.
Yeah. I'm sure.
But it is exciting. There are many, many exciting things happening.
There are.
And
There are.
And it's really great that there are venues that can sustain that as
Totally.
well, and the musicians.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that we have quite a few.
Yes.
Quite a few, and it's
Barishi, let's mention Barishi as a shout out as well.
Yo, Barishi.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your partner Graham Brooks is sort of the lead guy in Barishi.
He's the songwriter, and he's kind of the creative force behind it. Those guys have played together for, I don't know, 15 years maybe. So yeah, it's interesting. They're kind of at this crossroads right now where one of them has left the band, and that's like the first time that's happened. So they're kind of trying to figure out the next step. So they're kind of in the middle, but they have a whole new record that they just wrote. So we'll see what happens. But
yes, and they're heavy metal.
They're heavy
a little
metal.
different than you.
Yeah, but I love metal so much.
Oh.
I really do. I think it's so important in terms of like that cathartic release I was talking about earlier. I feel like such a kinship with being at a metal show and like feeling that. Just it's like you can't even name where it's coming from, but after you leave, I just feel like so calm, even though it's so chaotic there. It's like almost like everybody's just getting out their druthers.
All of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It's cool.
That's a very interesting response
Yeah.
to heavy metal.
Yeah.
That's great. Anything else you'd like to say to the folks out there?
I think stick with your dreams, folks. Follow through, have a cry, have a laugh. It's okay if you have a breakdown. Chances are you will come out the other side. And also, just like make art and have fun and enjoy your life. That's all.
Thank you,
Sure.
Hannah.
Thank you.
Thanks
for
Hannah
having
Hoffman, for those wise words.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great stories.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good questions. Thank you.
Good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone out there. Thanks to all of you for tuning in and for being with us today with Hannah Hoffman. and her music and her performing and her wise words. We're very grateful to have her. And just to say once again, you know, here we are as a show trying to bring folks from the community on who are all part of this community and all of our neighbors. And as I always say, you know, just take a step back and tune into your neighbors because we're all in this together. Thanks for being with us.